Hello students, welcome to Sunya IAS. So the UPSC Sociology Optional 2025 exam has already been conducted. We are here today to get a little bit of analysis of that particular paper which was recently concluded, as well as what we need to progress further to improve our sociology knowledge, to improve our answer writing skills, and what are the basic areas we need to focus upon when we talk about preparing sociology. Okay. So the key takeaway from this particular optional exam recently concluded by UPSC is that you need to take care of your basic knowledge with respect to different concepts given in our syllabus. When we talk about increasing or keeping focusing on the basic knowledge with respect to the different concepts given in our syllabus, the another major thing which UPSC wants you to, that you should be able to find out contemporary relevance of any topic given in your syllabus by UPSC. For example, when they talk about this reference theory of R.K. Merton, they want you to find out its contemporary relevance in the form of the rise of digital media or digital platforms. Similarly, they have given you historical materialism of Karl Marx and want you to give a contemporary analysis in the modern society. The similar approach they have been taking on from last few years. Like earlier, they have asked about epistemology in the form of present day digital media. Okay, so whatever the basic concepts you are reading now, just try to have a proper contemporary relevance or contemporary view related to those concepts. So if you are reading about scientific method, if you are reading about participant observations, try to find out that where we are going to look for participant observation now. Okay, then the next major emphasis of UPSC is on integration of different topics as well as both the papers. Okay, that how you are going to integrate different concepts. For example, whenever they ask a question related to stratification and mobility chapter of paper 1, take example for poverty, they will always make a connection of poverty and exclusion, and then they will ask the question. Similarly, now they have been asking question related to stratification but making connection between gender and stratification. Okay, similarly, when they ask a question for poverty in paper 2, they always make a connection between poverty and inequality or poverty and deprivation. Okay, apart from these concepts, they also want you to integrate the chapters. For example, when we talk about the chapter 10 of paper 1, which is about social change in modern society, here you tend to read about development and dependency. Whereas in chapter 15 of paper 2, which talks about challenges of social transformation, here you read about crisis of development, where the topic is of displacement, climate change, or your sustainability. Now this sustainability as such given in your paper 2, but this time they have asked question in paper 1 also. Okay, similarly the concepts given in paper 1, they want you to utilize the integration part, hence they are giving questions or concepts of paper 2 in paper 1 or paper 1 in paper 2. How we will be dealing about that, I will deal about it, that how we are going to focus about that particular integration, the vertical integration of topics or concepts in one paper, as well as how we are horizontally going to integrate about paper 1 and paper 2. Done. Now let's try to have an overview of this year's questions first. Now, again, the paper 1 was on the static theme of UPSC, but with that static theme you have to understand the integration of contemporary relevance as well as integration of paper 2 with paper 1 concepts. So for UPSC, common sense, science, scientific method, positivism, poverty, gender, variable, hypothesis, okay, objectivity, fact, value, all these becomes very much important. They always ask question related to these concepts. Similarly, when we pick up thinkers, for Karl Marx, historical materialism is important, mode of production is important, they will ask question related to it. For R.K. Merton, reference group theory, his anomy, deviant is important, they will ask question from it. For Emil Durkheim, suicide is again alienation, division of labor, they will ask question from it. So they have made a theme that from those sections they will be asking questions again and again, and that particular thing has again visualized in the question paper of UPSC related to sociology optional. So the first question was related to common sense and how common knowledge and sociology related to each other. We have asked in our test series related to this particular common sense knowledge. Similarly, they have asked a question related to sociology and history. Again, the scope of sociology and its comparison with other social sciences becomes a very much important theme whenever UPSC wants to ask question from, especially in paper 1 exam. Okay, so here they have asked a question related to sociology and history. We have again given a question in our test series related to sociology and history. Then variable, another important topic. We have also given the similar kind of question. What is a variable in social research? What are their different types? Elaborate the question by UPSC. And ours question was define variable and it lists its various types. How do they contribute to the field of social sciences? Again, Merton's reference group theory and its understanding in identity making in the digital world, the contemporary relevance. We have asked a question related to this reference group theory. So when you will analyze this particular sheet, you will see that most of the Sunya's questions they have came in UPSC's sociology paper. Okay, so now why are so many questions came in sociology paper? Because we have kept focus on the basic themes, and with that focus on the basic themes we try to enrich our students in analyzing the contemporary relevance or contemporary form of the different concepts whichever are in the question. Not only in paper 1, we have asked similar questions in paper 2 also. Okay, for example, take this 2B question. Agrarian class structure has been undergoing changes due to modern forces. This is a particular question given by UPSC this time. Agrarian class structure has been undergoing changes due to modern forces, critically examine. What was the question we have given in our test series? That the class structure of Indian agriculture has enormously changed in the last 70 years, comment. So we are trying to focus on the important themes on the basis of which UPSC will be asking question. Now everywhere you will be reading about agrarian class structure, but we kept focus on that why this agrarian class structure has been changing or what are the changes this has been seeing in society. Similar for family, similar for kinship. We have talked too much in our enrichment lessons related to new middle class and how it is different from old middle class. The question has came. We have talked related to same-sex marriages. I have given in your current affair notes related to sociology. Those topics have also came. Okay, so the major demand again for UPSC is sticking to the basic syllabus, but try to enrich your knowledge related to contemporary relevance of those topics of those subjects. Okay, so I will be uploading this particular direct hit that you will be analyzing from our Telegram channel itself. Okay, at the same time I want you to give more focus on how we are going to cover our sociology syllabus now. So I have made a particular sheet related to it, that how we are going to integrate the syllabus of paper 1 with paper 2 as well as the vertical integration of different topics or different concepts in the same syllabus. Okay, so this sheet you will be again getting in our Telegram channel. Now first try to analyze that how I made this particular sheet and what were the basis for making this particular sheet was. Now in paper 1 we have 10 chapters and in paper 2 divided into 3 different sections, we have total 15 chapters. Okay, so I will be listing down all the chapters, and I will try to highlight or analyze you that, and you will be able to analyze that how different concepts or different chapters are related to each other. So the first chapter is about sociology, the discipline. Second, sociology as science. And third, research methods and analysis. Now, when I talk to the students who are coming for mentorship, who are part of our test series, who are part of our arrangement courses, they come and say that our teacher, from where they have done foundation, they have not covered this particular research methods and analysis wala chapter, the chapter 3. Okay. Now the major emphasis of any teacher or from any anywhere you are getting your sociology foundation classes, that they are covering most of the topics of this research methods and analysis in chapter 2 itself, but you are not been able to analyze that particular part. So when we talk about science, scientific method, then we talk about positivism, non-positivism, and from chapter 3 we talk about quantitative methods and qualitative methods. So you are confused for covering chapter 3 is because you have not understood this connection which you have to make, that whenever you are trying to read about positivism, the features of science and scientific method will be same related to positivism. Okay, then if you are covering positivism, the quantitative analysis wala part will already be covered in that positivism. You have to just find out that connection. So my humble request is that whenever you will be covering your positivism wala part, which I have shown in this sheet also, that whenever you will be covering this positivism and its critique, then non-positivism methodologies, try to cover quantitative or qualitative methodology with this particular chapter 2 section itself, and hence you will be done with your third chapter, major section of third chapter, which is about qualitative and quantitative methods. Okay, then the fourth chapter is about sociological thinkers, where you tend to focus on 6 different thinkers. One is Karl Marx. Now let's talk about Karl Marx first, that how we are going to integrate different sections of paper 1 with the Karl Marx, this particular sociological thinker wala chapter of paper 1. Okay, now when we talk about Karl Marx, you tend to write about his or read about his historical materialism, mode of production, class struggle, class revolution, his alienation, and religion. Okay, now try to find out that where we are going to find out these particular sections. Now when we talk about this historical materialism and mode of production of Karl Marx, what we are trying to read here, or what you must have gone through in your foundation classes related to historical materialism and mode of production. So with this historical materialism and mode of production, Karl Marx trying to highlight that how society evolved with respect to the material changes in the historical times. Okay, hence you must be getting a chart related to how the society was in primitive communist time, then it changed into slave society, slave to feudal, feudal to capitalist, capitalist to socialist, and in the end communist society. Okay, now with this particular chart itself, it has been highlighted, or it should come into their mind that this is nothing but social organization of work in different societies. Am I right? This particular section, social organization of work in different societies, is part of your chapter 6, which talks about work and economic life, And here the part A talks about social organization of work in different types of societies. Okay. In Karl Marx, we talk about historical materialism, mode of production, okay. Now see this chapter 6. Work and economic life, social organization of work in different types of societies, slave, feudal, industrial, capitalist society. Okay, when you will see the PYQs of this particular section, you will be seeing that most of the questions are coming from Karl Marx only. Describe the differing principles of work organization in feudal and capitalist societies. What characterizes degradation of work in capitalist society according to Marx? Discuss the nature of social organization of work in capitalist society with reference to the limits of the working day, again Marx concept. Trace the changing nature of organization of work in capitalist society over the years. Describe the nature of social organization of work in different industrial societies. What is reserve army of labor? Distinguish between social organization of work in feudal society and capitalist society. So this is from chapter 6, part A, social organization of work in different types of societies. I want that whenever you are covering Karl Marx, historical materialism and mode of production, try to integrate this particular part in your chapter 6, part A, social organization of work in historical materialism and mode of production of Karl Marx. Okay. Then whenever you are covering about his class revolution, so Karl Marx class revolution is nothing but that how different or two classes in society will be in antagonistic with each other and how it will lead to the change of society. So this class revolution is simplifying what? Is symbolic to your change of society, social change basically. So this particular class revolution theory of Karl Marx is further related to your another chapter, which is about chapter 10 of paper 1, whose name itself is social change. Social change in modern society. So whenever you are covering social change in modern society, in that particular chapter you must be reading about conflict theory of social change. That conflict theory of social change is nothing but this class revolution itself. That means you are reading about Karl Marx view related to conflict theory of social change in chapter 10. So what will be better, that we are completing the conflict theory of social change wala part with class revolution of Karl Marx in chapter 4 itself. Okay. Then you have a thinker another whose name is Emil Durkheim. Now for him, in most of the foundation classes you deal with or start with reading about religion of Emil Durkheim, then division of labor, anomie, suicide. Okay. So if in your foundation classes itself or in your foundation notes itself you are reading about religion in Emil Durkheim's lecture, go and look for the PYQs in chapter 10, which is about religion and society. Here you have one section, section A talks about theory of religion. Go and see the PYQs there. Most of the PYQs are of Emil Durkheim. Okay, I will show you the PYQs now. Religion and society, section A, sociological theories of religion, which in my chart I have covered with Emil Durkheim part here itself. What are the questions? How do theories of, this was 2025 question, Marx, Weber and Durkheim differ in understanding of religion? I will tell you how you are going to comprehend about these particular topics also. Then in 2022, critical examine the relevance of Durkheim's view on religion in contemporary society. 2020, Durkheim's view on elementary forms of religious life and role of religion. Also discuss the consequence of religious revivalism in contemporary society. In what way did Durkheim perceive religion as functional to society? Okay. Now, if you have seen 2025 paper, there was one question related to, in paper 2, related to religion and national integration. So if you are focusing on Durkheim's perceived religion as functional to society, this is nothing but an example of this particular function, that how religion is important for national integrity, how religion is important for our social integrity. So if you could have kept importance or given importance to the functional school of thought, the paper 2 question will already be automatically will be addressed in a very enriched way, in a very sociological perspective way. Okay, this is the reason we have to understand the integration first whenever we are trying to start with our sociology optional. Then 2017, give an assessment of Durkheimian notion of sacred and profane. Again 2016, Durkheim's theory of religion different from Max Weber's theory of religion. 2015, Durkheim view on elementary forms of religious life, and etc. etc. In 2021, there was a question related to E.B. Taylor and Max Muller's view on religion. Else, every time you will be seeing from 2014 onwards, the question has been asked on the basis of Emil Durkheim's view on the religion. Okay. So hence, whenever you will be reading about religion in chapter 4 related to Emil Durkheim, always try to cover section A, theory of religion wala part, with Emil Durkheim's religion here itself. Done. Now here come a connection between Karl Marx and Emil Durkheim whenever we talk about division of labor and anomy. So whenever you will be covering alienation from Karl Marx perspective, make a comparative chart so that you will be covering division of labor and anomy wala perspective of Emil Durkheim along with it in a comparative analysis. That chart should include another thinker, which is R.K. Merton. So your comparative chart will be here. You will be writing different aspects on the basis of which you are going to categorize your division of labor wala part. Okay, what is its meaning? Okay, how it is relevant, what is its contemporary relevance, examples according to it, any supportive or non-supportive thinkers which you can find related to that particular point of view. Here relevant means the focus area. Okay, here you will be writing about the Karl Marx perspective on these aspects, here Emil Durkheim perspective, and here R.K. Merton perspectives. In the end, you have to make or categorize yourself that how you are going to think about who is more important or who is more relevant in the present time. Finding about the relevancy of that particular part will automatically become your conclusion. Okay. Then here when we talk about religion, the question is also coming on the basis of comparative analysis between different thinkers related to religion. Again here you have to think about again making a comparative chart on different aspects. Again, what was the meaning of religion for one, what was the origin of that religion, what was the focus area of that religion, how this religion is functional or non-functional for society, basically the views of related to religion on society. Okay, then the contemporary relevance of it and who is more prominent. Here again you have to compare about Karl Marx, Max Weber, Emil Durkheim and R.K. Merton. In Emil Durkheim itself you can also connect points of Talcott Parsons because he is also giving the functionalist view related to religion. Okay, so this is also important. Why? Because every time earlier the question was related to Max Weber and Durkheim related to religion, this time the question is on Weber, Marx and Durkheim related to their views on religion. So if you are not able to do this contemporary analysis, you will find it difficult to write answers in the final exam. Okay. Then next thinker, your Max Weber. So for Max Weber, you are reading about social action, ideal types, his authority wala part, bureaucracy, Protestant ethics and spirit of capitalism. So this particular chunk you have to cover with the Emil Durkheim wala part of religion as well as with Marx part wala religion. Again, one important another thing here is that this is nothing but the talk of that why capitalism was taken emergence related to the Protestant ethics. With this, make a comparative chart of Karl Marx views related to capitalism. Again, this becomes important because PYQs have been asked on that particular framework. Okay. Then why I have written about social action and ideal types here in Karl Marx? Because if you are covering about social action and ideal types of Karl Marx, I have talked to the students, they always find it difficult about Talcott Parsons and his understanding related to social action and pattern variables. So now here comes an analysis of your syllabus that whenever you are reading social action of Max Weber and ideal types of Max Weber, try to read the Talcott Parsons view of social action with social action of Weber and Talcott Parsons views of pattern variables with ideal types of Max Weber. You will be able to analyze that how this particular two thought processes or two concepts have taken inspiration from Weber's perspective, Weber's these two perspectives. Then similarly, the next concept, authority wala part. Now here the questions are related to, or the concepts are related to power and authority. I want my students, or I have advised my students to, whenever they are going to cover this authority of Max Weber, cover your politics and society, the chapter 7, section A, authority wala part with this particular Karl Marx authority itself. Because if you are going to understand about authority, you need to have understanding of power. Okay, because a question come around that how those two are different with each other. When you are understanding about authority, trying to read about dimensions or making dimensions related to authority, why not cover authority section, power and authority wala section with this of politics and society with authority sections of Max Weber itself here in the chapter 4. The bureaucracy is itself part of your section C of politics and society. So two chunks of your politics and society will be already covered in Max Weber. Okay, how we are going to deal about it? Ideal types, pattern variables, authority. Look, authority, which concepts did Weber use to analyze the forms of legitimate domination? Then the politics and society wala chapter. Discuss the dimensions of power in construction and maintenance of social hierarchies in a society. Look at this particular 2024 question. How is power different from authority? Discuss major types of authorities as authorized by Max Weber. So when you are covering authority from Max Weber perspective in chapter 4, why don't cover the power and authority whole in this particular Max Weber class itself? Okay. The basic, dimensions you will be generating, there also you can utilize the views of different thinkers in that authority section itself. Automatically you are doing a critical analysis, you are finding the significance, which is more relevant, which is not more relevant. Done. Bureaucracy is already part of your chapter 7b part, bureaucracy, politics and society. Then comes your Talcott-Parsons, R.K. Merton and G.H. Mead. For Parsons social action pattern variables, you will be dealing with, or you will be doing it with, in a comparative analysis with Max Weber itself. Then comes his dynamic equilibrium wala part. Social system, dynamic equilibrium. Agile model will be also part of it. It's the dynamic equilibrium model of Parsons, where you read in Talcott-Parsons chapter 4. What does it try to symbolize? It try to highlight that even if there are some internal, external changes are there related to social actions in the social system, they will further result into equilibrium itself. So what is this? This is nothing but structural functionalist view of social change. So as the name is social change, this will become part of your chapter 10, social change in modern society. Here, whenever you are reading about structural functionalist view of social change, that view is nothing but this dynamic equilibrium wala view, which you have already covered in your chapter 4, Talcott-Parsons. Okay. Then comes your R.K. Merton, where you will be reading about deviance, anomy, middle range theory, etc. The deviance and anomy wala part you have to cover with Karl Marx alienation as well as Emil Durkheim's division of labor and anomy. Then G.H. Mead, I, me and self. And for every other concept which you are reading about in this particular sociological thinkers, the 6 thinkers which UPSC has given us, try to find out the contemporary relevance of it. For example, in G.H. Mead, how self is being generated when we talk about digital media. Okay. Similarly, R.K. Merton, how the deviance is being generated when we talk about identity formation in the digital age. Okay. So these are important 4 thinkers, or important 6 thinkers from chapter 4, and how you are going to make these connections with the other chapters related to your paper 1 itself. From the next chapter, the chapter 5th, which is about stratification and mobility, we will see that how we are going to make connection with paper 2 now for the remaining chapters. Now let's first go through the different sections which you cover from stratification and mobility. Now, stratification and mobility, you read about concepts, equality, inequality, hierarchy, exclusion, poverty and deprivation, then theories of stratification, then part C, dimensions, social stratification of class, status group, gender, ethnicity, race, etc. Then section D, social mobility. Okay. Now, how these are related to your paper 2. So, for concepts, you have equality, inequality, poverty, deprivation, exclusion, etc. and hierarchy. Okay. Now, try to understand what I am trying to say now. Now, when we talk about that India society is developing. That means we are talking about economic, social and political development. Okay, so for that development, basically when we talk about that from a traditional society to we are becoming a modern society, in that modern society we have to talk about economic development, social development, political development. Okay, in this development transformation, what are these? Poverty, deprivation, exclusion, inequality or hierarchy. These things, this poverty, inequality, or these concepts, the inequality, poverty, deprivation, exclusion and hierarchy, are they going to support India's transformation in this developing journey, or are they going to create problems for India's transformation in this development journey? They are going to create challenges, they are going to create problems. Hence they become, or these concepts become part of our chapter 15, whose name itself is Challenges of Social Transformation of India, where you will be finding poverty, inequality and deprivation as an important parts. Okay, look here. Concepts: equality, inequality, hierarchy, exclusion, poverty and deprivation. Here 15, chapter 15, part B, poverty, deprivation and inequality. Now look at the questions. In paper 1 they will be making a connection between poverty and social exclusion. In paper 2 they will be making a connection between inequality and poverty. But the basic approach related to inequality, exclusion, poverty, deprivation will be same. So why not read these two sections together? Okay. How is poverty a form of social exclusion? Illustrate in this connection in different dimensions of poverty and social exclusion. Discuss the relationship between poverty and social exclusion. Can we equate poverty with poor living? How hierarchy and exclusion, the major impediments in transformation of societies? What is the difference between natural and social inequality? Then come here in paper 2, emerging forms of inequalities and acute poverty. Okay. Give an account of the consequences and remedies of chronic malnutrition. That means again an aspect, the larger aspect of poverty and deprivation. Identify different forms of inequalities with agrarian social structure in India. This particular section you can also cover with your agrarian, rural and agrarian transformation wala chapter, which we will be seeing that how we are going to integrate those sections also. Getting my point? So when you are reading about the basic concepts or basic meanings of these sections, why not try to understand that if these are problems or challenges for the social transformation of Indian society, that means that particular chunk itself need to be covered here. Okay. Then in this particular section itself, the social stratification wala part, you will be reading about social stratification related to class, gender, race and status, class, status group here and ethnicity. Okay. So when they are asking issues related to or stratification related to these particular sections, we are going to read about this class, status group, gender, race, ethnicity here itself. They are categorizing, or caste is also a status group, hence they are categorizing the caste wala section. Only one question or two question here in this particular section itself. But the major, this gender, race, ethnicity, you also read about this in your paper too. Again, try to understand in this way. The racial and ethnicity based conflicts are what? They are problematic or supportive for India's transformation. They are creating a problem for India's transformation. Hence, you can read the ethnic conflicts wala part of your chapter 15 in this particular section itself. Try to combine the racial conflicts also here. If you want, you can also combine the issues related to your gender, like violence against women, which is again part of your chapter 15. Here you can also connect the caste conflict, which is also part of your chapter 15, challenges of social transformation. That means larger chunk of challenges of social transformation is already, that part, paper 2 chapter 15 is already covered with our paper 1. So we will be having ready-made examples for our paper 1 answers, as well as we will be having a ready-made school of thoughts when we are going to write about our paper 2 answers related to these concepts. Getting my point? Now here there is one another component, class. Now look at the question related to this particular class. In 1 year they have asked a question related to your new middle class here in the paper 1 itself. In the 2025 the question was on gender blind or gender and social stratification issue. 2024 caste as a status group. 2014 gender and how it is shaping male identity. In 2019 they have asked a question related to present a sociological review on new middle class. What this year they did? This year they have asked a question related to main features of India's new middle class and how it is different from old middle class. So if you would have combined these particular two sections to understand the class formation, we could have easily gotten the answer of our paper 2 wala question here. Okay. So for this, what we need to do? Again, with this class wala section, we need to cover chapter 6 social classes wala part from paper 2, where in section B you talk about middle classes in India. Done? So we will be covering poverty, inequality, deprivation from challenges of social transformation, racial conflicts, ethnic conflicts, violence against women, caste conflicts here itself. If violence against women you are not covering here, you can cover with the family and kinship wala chapter also there, because there is a component known as kinship. Okay, I will show you how. And hence in the end you will be covering your middle classes wala from chapter 6 social classes wala chapter. Okay, then comes your chapter 6, which is about work and economic life. Now with this work and economic life, the first section which talks about social organization of work, we have already covered. Okay, in Karl Marx, when we are talking about the historical materialism and mode of production. After that you will be reading about your informal and formal labor. Now again, this is one of the important pet topic of UPSC. They will be asking questions related to it, and they are asking also the paper 2 examples in paper 1, basically the application part of these particular concepts. So why not cover this particular section with paper 2 section also, where you will be reading about informal and formal labor in paper 2. You will be reading about this in chapter 11 of paper 2, which is about industrialization and urbanization. So the basic meaning or features of formal and informal labor will remain the same. Okay, but what are their impacts in the Western world and in the Indian society will be different. So why not combine all these and read it together, so that whenever the question is they are asking related to informal and formal labor, we have ready-made examples, we have ready-made thought processes to write in paper 1 as well as in paper 2. Okay. Then also here you read about labor and society. Okay, where you tend to find out these types of questions. Let me show you those questions. Explain the implications of feminization of work in developing societies. Illustrate the main problems and challenges faced by the migrant laborers in the recent lockdown period. What is labor commitment? Discuss in reference to the studies of manufacturing industry. Now the first two questions are what? When they are asking about developing society, India is a developing society, na? Okay, so the feminization of work in industrialization and urbanization chapter 11, you can compare with this particular sections here itself and complete it. Similarly, the lockdown period, they are asking about the reverse migration the migrants have faced and the problems related to it. The same question they have asked in the recently concluded exam also, the reverse migration and its impact on the society, labor wala part. You can compare those particular perspectives and can solve here itself. Okay. So 6 chapters, and with this 6 chapter we have to complete our industrialization and urbanization. Basically the industrialization wala section, not the urbanization. Urbanization wala we will deal different in paper 2. Okay. Then comes your chapter 7, which is about politics and society. So here the sociological theories of power related to power and authority we have already covered with Max Weber's authority. Then its bureaucracy we have already covered in your Max Weber's bureaucracy. Then comes your power elite wala concept. Okay. After that we have nation, state, citizenship, civil society, pressure group, political parties, okay, and then nation state or nation state democracy. Okay. Now the basic feature of democracy will be same, the basic feature of citizenship rights will be same, the basic meaning, features of nation state, civil society, pressure group, political parties, etc. will remain same. Their impacts on the Indian society or their impact on different forms, like how pressure group is impacting democracy, how political parties are impacting democracy, how civil society is enriching democracy, etc. they will be asked. Okay, so that means these sections of politics and society are also the part of paper 2. So you will be covering these sections with paper 1 itself. Similarly, I will suggest that whatever social and political elite, we read in politics and society of paper 2, you cover these 2 elites with C. Mills political elite theory here itself, so that if a question comes related to comparison of power elite or political elite of West and Indian society, you have a ready-made answer with it. If not, you will be able to generate dimensions while analyzing social and political elite from paper 2 perspective. Getting my point? Okay. Now look at the questions related to this. Civil society is not part of paper. They haven't given that this is part of paper 2 in the syllabus, but they are asking questions related to civil society in paper 2. Okay. Power elite concept, circulation of power elite, Mill's elite rule is in institutional terms rather than psychological terms. Importance of power elite in democracy. So this particular question can also be asked in paper 2. Discuss the importance of power elite in democracy. Okay. Then political parties, pressure groups, and your social and political elite, note on freedom of press, comment on the increasing significance of caste in politics. What is caste politics, role of pressure group in strengthening democracy? Now look at this 2025 question. Here 2022, discuss the role of pressure groups in strengthening democracy. In 2025, in paper 1 they have asked a question, are pressure groups a threat or necessary element for democracy? Can you find the connection between these two? That is the reason I always tell my students, as well as I am telling you, that you should integrate both the papers when you are reading about pressure groups or your sociology at the larger frame. Done? Okay. 2025, how do civil society organizations such as NGOs, self-help groups contribute to the grassroots levels of social change? Discuss. So this is nothing but related to your In paper 2, in Politics of Society, we have a section known as Regionalism and Decentralization, where we tend to read about the importance of civil societies and self-help groups in decentralization. This is nothing but example or application part from paper 2 which is asked in paper 1. Done? So whenever again trying to read about civil society, integrate your paper 1 and paper 2. Let me find if any questions comes related to media is the fourth pillar of democracy. Again, important part of your civil society wala perspective. Okay. Then in paper 1 itself, with politics of society, you read about social movements and ideology, collective action, protests, agitation, social movement, social revolution, etc. Now, when you are reading about these concepts in your foundation classes or foundation notes related to social movements from paper 1 perspective, you tend to find out that there is a theory building related to it. But when you will be analyzing PYQs, you will be seeing that in paper 1 itself, they are asking questions related to social movements of paper 2, which is a different chapter in paper 2. The chapter 12th is about politics of society in paper 2, and chapter 13th is about social movements in modern India, where you have different sections: women movements, peasant and farmer movements, backward class and Dalit movements, environment movements, ethnicity based identity movements. Okay, let's try to have a look on these PYQs of social movements. Discuss how environmentalism can be explained with the name of new social movements approach. What is new in new social movements? Elaborate your answer with a special reference to India. Okay. Are social movements primarily means and progressive in agenda? Role of protest movements in changing the status of Dalits in India. But this is part of paper 2, Dalit movements, backward class movements and Dalit movements. Then look at the questions of these. What is Dalit movement? Examine the issues highlighted by it. Different forms of Dalit assertion. Identity politics, main trends in Dalit movements. Issues involved in Dalit movements. But they are asking status of Dalit movements or Dalits in India with respect to the protest movements in paper 1 also. So it's better to combine social movements wale chapter 13 of paper 2 with social movements wala section of politics of society in paper 1. If you are not doing this combination, at least when you are reading about caste in paper 2, the chapter 4 caste and caste system in India, where also you can combine this backward and Dalit movements with that particular chapter. Okay, so there are two ways of completing this particular part. Then for movements and environmentalism, what is new and this new identity movements, I will suggest you to complete this particular section related to environment wala with this itself. Okay, like discuss the various forms of environment movements waged in India, reduction of green cover affected ecological degradation, implications of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, evaluate the nature and scope of anthropologic influence on climate change, issues of rising global climate concerns, how do you contextualize the Chipko movement and its Gandhian tone, answers analytically. Okay, so cover those sections of environment movements from chapter 13 of social movements in paper 2 with this social politics and society wala chapter of paper 1 itself, where you are also covering social movements. Okay, now we're done with politics and society. Then comes your chapter 8, religion and society. Now when you talk about religion and society, in paper 1 we have theories of religion, which we have already covered in with Emil Durkheim earlier in chapter 4 itself. Then comes your different other sections like types of religious practices, animism, monism, pluralism, sects and cults. Then religion in modern society. Here again try to analyze that when we are talking about this types of religious practices. With this you can connect with chapter 8 of paper 2, also religion and society, where we tend to find about different religious communities in India. So the paper 1, the religious practices, is related to this particular section. Okay. Then religion and modern society is their separate topic, which we don't have in paper 2, but we have in paper 2 about the problems of religious communities. Okay. Then in paper 1 you have different other sections, like first secularism or secularization, revivalism, communalism, and fundamentalism. Okay, now where these particular sections lie in Indian society wala paper 2. Now understand this thing. When we talk about secularism and secularization, what is the basic meaning of it? That the politics should be separate from religion. No role of religion in government, no role of religion in state. But in Indian society, religion plays a very much important role in politics and society. Hence, this secularization wala section is covered in your politics and society chapter of paper 2, which is chapter 12. Whereas revivalism, communalism, and fundamentalism are what? They are a problematic tone. Hence, they are problems for Indian society. That means they are challenge to the social transformation of India. Hence, they are part of your chapter 15th, challenges of social transformation. When we are going to cover these particular sections, we need to cover secularization, 12D, politics and society, secularization, revivalism and fundamentalism. We have to cover communalism and revivalism of paper 2 with this particular section. Okay, for example, 2018, discuss the challenges thrown by religious revivalism to a secular nation state. What if the question is discuss the challenges thrown by religious revivalism to India? The same pointers will be written. We will be ready with ready-made examples of this revivalism from Indian perspective. That means from chapter 12, chapter 15, challenges social transformation wala perspective. Okay. Then comes your chapter 9, which is about systems of kinship. Here the UPSC asks questions from paper 2 itself in paper 1. In paper 1 itself, you will be finding questions related to North versus South Indian kinship, family and household in Indian dimension, Iravati's Karve's kinship variation, family and marriage and kinship, their contemporary changes in the Indian society. So I will suggest you have to cover system of kinship wala part of paper 2, where also you have name of systems of kinship along with the chapter 7 of paper 2 along with chapter 9 of your paper 1. Okay, sorry, the chapter 8 of paper 2 with chapter 9 of paper 1. Discuss the consequences of across region marriage on kinship system in modern Indian society. The same question will be asked in paper 1. Okay. Important studies related to structure changes in Indian family system, importance of Kanyadan and Kulbadhu, impact of industrialization and urbanization on family structure, study of marriage important, in what ways cure kinship challenge the traditional kinship systems, which is the recent question. Family and household, discuss between family and household, bring out the significance of difference between family and household. Clarify the distinction between household and family. Analyze household dimensions of family in India. Types and forms of family. Iravati Karve, major difference between North and kinship system, South kinship system. Same question I have asked in paper 2. Discuss the conceptual issue. This broadly compare the kinship system of North and South. Okay. Then again, patriarchy and sexual division of labor. Similar points we have in chapter 8 in paper 2, patriarchy, enlightenments and sexual division of labor. When you will analyze the PYQs, you will be getting the same PYQs here also. Done. So this is how you have to integrate these wala part. Now I have told you earlier that if you want to cover gender conflicts in stratification wala chapter, cover this violence against women there itself, else cover in the family and systems of kinship chapter 9 of paper 1, along with 15C of challenging social transformation, violence against women here. Okay, now we are left with one chapter of paper 1, which is about chapter 10, social change in modern society. Now here you read about theories of social change: linear theories of social change, conflict theory of social change, structural functionalist theory of social change, modern theory of social change. Now conflict theory is about Karl Marx, structural functionalist Talcott Parsons. Now this linear theory of social change, if you are reading about sociology as science in paper 1, where you read about Auguste Comte, that how society has moved from theological stage to metaphysical stage, from metaphysical stage to it has moved toward positive state or scientific stage. That particular description of Auguste Comte related to theological to metaphysical, metaphysical to positivist, that is nothing but this linear theory of social change. So you must have completed this particular part in chapter 2 itself. Then comes your modern theory of social change. This modern theory of social change, where they have been asking in PYQs about great tradition and little tradition wala questions. This is nothing but part of your chapter 2 of paper 2, which is about impact of colonial rule on Indian society, where you read about Yogendra Singh and his concept related to modernization of Indian tradition. Okay, then you tend to write about or read about your agents of social change. You also read about education and social change. You also read about science and tech and social change. Now when we talk about agents of social change, you tend to read about constitution, law as an agent of social change. That particular part is related to your agent of social change, related to your chapter 9, visions of social change, where we have one section, constitution, law and social change. Okay, then comes your education science tech. They are also part of this vision of social change wala section. Now here one important understanding which I need to have, that when we talk about education as an important agent of social change, what is illiteracy then? Illiteracy is problem for Indian society. That means challenge to the social transformation of India. Hence, the lack of education, the digital divide, etc. will be part of your chapter 15th, challenges of social transformation. Okay, so the major sections of your paper 2 are already combined in paper 1. Let me give you an overview again. Chapter 1, sociology the discipline. 2, sociology as science. 3, research methods and analysis. 4th, sociological thinkers. 5th, stratification and mobility. 6th, work and economic life. 7th, politics and society. 8th, religion and society. 9th, systems of kinship. And 10th, social change in modern society. Okay, stratification and mobility, compare the chapter 15 of paper 2, challenges social transformation here. Then your chapter 6, social classes wala part here itself. ethnic conflicts, racial conflicts, gender conflicts also you can complete here itself. Then work and economic life, chapter 11 of your paper 2, industrialization and urbanization. Politics and society, chapter 12 and chapter 13, politics and society and social movements of paper 2. Religion and society, chapter 7 of your paper 2, religion society. System of kinship, chapter 8 of your paper 2. Vision of social change, in this chapter 2, impact of colonial rule, in that modernization of Indian tradition by Yogendra Singh. Then chapter 9, vision of social change, and then remaining parts of chapter 15. Okay, now we have completed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 chapters of paper 2. Now 6 are left there. How we are going to complete the paper 2 now? We will be analyzing the vertical integration of paper 2 now. Okay. For paper 2, we have 15 chapters. You can, I will be talking about another connection in paper 1 and 2, while we will be dealing with one developmental perspective. First is perspectives on Indian studies, society, impact of colonial rule, rural, agrarian, and social structure. Then we have caste system, tribal communities in India, social classes, systems of kinship, religion and society, vision of social change, rural, agrarian transformation, industrialization. Then paper 12 is politics and society, 13th is social movements, 14th is population dynamics, and 15th is challenges of social transformation. Now, perspectives to study Indian society. Okay, here you tend to read about different views, G.S. Ghure, M.N. Srinivas, structural functionalist view, etc., etc., A.R. Desai. Now, when you talk about A.R. Desai's view, there is a second chapter which talks about impact of colonial rule on Indian society. Okay, there you have one part, social background of India's nationalism. This is nothing but work of A.R. Desai itself. So get this section covered in this A.R. Desai wala part. Modernization of Indian tradition we have already covered in paper 1. Then we are left with social reforms and social movements during the colonial rule in this particular chapter 2. Then chapter 3 comes related to your work and economic life. Let me show you questions some. Okay. Then this Marxist sociology wala part, we will be covering the social background of Indian nationalism together, where one question has already come. I'll examine the social background of growth of Indian nationalism, which is nothing but work of A.R. Desai itself. Okay. Then modernization of Indian tradition, we have already covered in paper 1, protest movements during colonial rule and social reform. These are the only sections. Then comes your chapter 3rd, rural and agrarian social structure. Now from here we will be getting a larger view of related to integration of different chapters of paper 2. Rural and agrarian social structure, where you tend to read about idea of Indian village, land reforms, etc., etc., land reform, land tenure system. Now when we talk about the social structure and the rural and agrarian social structure relation with it, that means whatever the social structure we have from British times, we are trying to understand the transformation or change of that social structure. Whatever the social classes related to those social structure are present in Indian society, we are also trying to understand about those social classes and their transformation. That means the rural and agrarian social classes we need to read here. Similarly, the rural and agrarian social transformation, the green revolution and its impact, LPG and its impact, we also need to read here itself. but these are different chapters in our paper 2 syllabus. This is part of your chapter 6 social classes wala part A, rural and agrarian social classes, and this is the rural and agrarian social transformation is your chapter 10, where you tend to read about green revolution, LPG, and change in mode of production of agriculture, etc., etc. That means with chapter 3 we are combining chapter 6 one section, and we are combining chapter 10. Along with it, this transformation will have some protests and agitations going on related to changing nature of agriculture, decreasing productivity of agriculture, etc. That means with this you have to combine your chapter 13 part A, which talks about peasants and farmers movement. Okay, so this is how you have to cover all the sections of rural and agrarian society at one particular place. Rural and agrarian social structure, chapter 3. With this, the sections we will be covering: idea of Indian village and village studies, agrarian social structure, social classes in India of chapter 6, then rural and agrarian social transformation, and in the end chapter 13 A, social movements in modern India, where you will be reading about peasants and farmer movements. So that whatever the issues related to agriculture, we have covered all those portions together. Okay, now chapter 4, caste. With this, if you haven't covered backward and Dalit caste movements earlier in paper 1 stratification wala chapter, cover here itself. That means chapter 13, social movements, Dalit, backward and Dalit caste movements. Okay, apart from it, if you haven't covered the caste conflict wala portion of chapter 15, challenges of social transformation, in stratification wala chapter, cover here. Okay, then comes your chapter 5, which is about tribal communities in India. So with this, if you haven't covered again the ethnic movements from chapter 13 with stratification wala chapter in paper 1, so cover here. And if you haven't covered the ethnic conflicts wala portion of chapter 15, challenges social transformation, in stratification wala chapter, then cover here. Okay, then chapter 6, social classes. Social classes in India. Part A, rural agrarian social class, already covered earlier. Part B, middle classes, already covered in paper 1. Then comes your part C, industrial and urban class structure. This particular section we will be covering with chapter 11, industrialization and urbanization. Okay, then comes your chapter 7, system of kinship, already covered in paper 1 or already covered with paper 1. Chapter 8, religion and society, already covered with paper 2. Then comes your chapter 9, visions of social change. Okay, here we have one section which we need to cover with chapter 11. So this will be also covered. I will tell you how. Then chapter 10, 11. Chapter 10, rural and agrarian social transformation, already covered with chapter 4. Then we come a major important chapter which is about industrialization and urbanization. Now informal, formal labor, already covered with paper 1. Okay, the social classes or the industrial and urban classes, as I have told you earlier, in the part of chapter 6 we will be covering with chapter 11, industrialization and urbanization. Okay, now listen carefully. Now when we talk about industrialization and urbanization, in industrialization, what we tend to focus upon? The evolution of industries in India, when I talk about evolution of industries, that means whatever the development approach we have or we had related to industrial development, we will be talking about that. The India's development approach was based on planning commission and it was focused on mixed economy. That means India's idea of development is based on mixed economy. Okay, this is what is the name of Vision of Social Change, Chapter 9, Part A, Idea of Development and Mixed Economy. That means we have to cover this particular section here itself. Okay, the Chapter 9, Part A, we will be covering with industrialization and urbanization. Chapter 9, Part B, Vision of Social Change wala part, where we have to talk about constitutional law and social change, we have already covered with paper 1. Okay, then with this development which India is having, with this industrialization which India is having, the challenges related to it, the challenges related to this development needs also to be covered together. Okay, that means whatever the crisis of development we have related to the India's industrialization and development approach, we need to cover with industrialization and urbanization chapter. This is what is the name of your chapter 15th, Part A, Crisis of Development. Okay, so your chapter 11, industrialization and urbanization, evolution of modern industries, growth of urban settlements, working class structure, informal sector, child labor, work, your vision of then social classes in India, with this idea of development and economy, and then challenges of social transformation apart, crisis of development, displacement, environment problems and sustainability. Now this crisis of development wala portion, where we have to talking about displacement, environmental crisis and sustainability, you need to cover with your paper 1, chapter 10, social changes, where you talk about development and dependency. Because the displacement which you are talking about here is nothing but form of dependency. The sustainable development which we are talking about here is nothing but dependency. The environmental crisis, climate change, etc., which we are talking about is nothing but dependency. Hence the question related to sustainability have come related to this particular section, development and dependency of paper 1. If we could have understood that integration, it was easy to answer. If you are not able to understand, it is difficult to answer. Okay, then your politics and society covered in paper 1, 13 social movements covered in paper 1, 14 population dynamics, the important chapter which is left now from paper 2 perspective, and chapter 15 challenges social transformation covered with paper 1 as well as different sections of paper 2. So in the end, what we have been left with paper 2, only one full chapter of your population dynamics. Now look here, challenges of social transformation covered with paper 1 as well as different sections of paper 2. I have given the names of those sections. Then population dynamics we need to cover, social movements in modern society covered with paper 1 itself, and the different, if not in paper 1, covered with different sections of paper 2. Only women movements will be left here. Then politics and society and social movements, regionalism and decentralization is left here only to cover. Then your this industrialization and urbanization, this chapter we need to cover, but make a holistic view of that, how the different sections will be covered together with this. Vision of social change, rural and agrarian transformation already covered with chapter 3, vision of social change covered with chapter 11, as well as in paper 2, regional society covered with paper 2, paper 1, system of kinship covered with paper 1, social classes one section covered in paper 1, 2 sections covered in with different chapters of paper 2. Then your tribal communities, caste system, third chapter, which is combining different other sections. So in the end, the overall 25 chapters, 10 from paper 1, 15 from papers 2, they will be clubbed together to make 12 to 13 chapters. And when you are doing this integration, whatever the approach UPSC has related to asking questions in an integrated framework, that can be answered very easily. Okay. Now, the next question comes around that how we are going to make short notes. And you must have analyzed this particular thing by analyzing the PYQs also. That in the end, you need to have short notes while you are answering your questions related to sociology. So for this short notes, what the basic advice which I give my students is that keep yourself very much basic. So for any concept which is in question, you need to have a basic understanding, meaning, the basic meaning. Similarly, you need to highlight the features or different aspects of that concept. If you are focusing on these two things, meaning as well as features or different aspects of the concepts, most of your answers will already be done. How? Now I will be giving you few examples. If we are going to write about modernity, what is modernity? The basic meaning, the transition of society from traditional values to modern values. It's what modernity is all about. Give examples, whatever the examples you have. Then come down to writing the features. What are the features of modernity? Rationalism, secularism, democracy, capitalism, humanism, citizenship, individualism, etc., etc. The rise of middle class. Now, if the examiner is asking me a question that how modernity and traditions are antithetical to each other, are traditional institutions or traditional values are continuing in Indian society or not? That was what UPSC asked twice in paper 2 this year. Can't you write or compare traditions with modernity with these features of modernization itself? That modern societies are based on rationalism, but traditional societies are based on what? Traditional values. Modern societies are focusing on secularism, but traditional societies were based on religion. Modern societies are individualistic in nature, whereas in traditional societies we have collectivism or holism as given by Yogendra Singh. What we are doing, we are just comparing the features of one with the others. Then your question comes around that how many thinkers and how we are going to remember about thinkers. So for remembering thinkers, the major thing which you can do again is club those thinkers in the features itself. For example, this rationalism. Max Weber talks about modern societies being rational societies, and hence he talks about bureaucracy as a tool for capitalism. Whereas for conflict theorists, there is no rationalism in modern society, but it is an ideological tool made by the upper class to control the lower classes. Similarly for secularism, when we say that modern society is secular, critical analysis, R.K. Merton, then why there is revivalism and communalism in in the larger society? Okay, so club your thinkers, whatever the thinkers you want to have here itself. This particular thing is also going to help you in your answer writing skills also. How? Suppose from rural and agrarian social structure, the question comes related to idea of Indian villages. If a question is evolution of idea of Indian villages from British times to present time. How we are going to answer that particular question? Nothing but make an ideal type of British view related to idea of Indian village. It is little republic, self-sustained, no connection with the outer world, microcosm of society, religion and caste are the only important dynamics here. Okay, and try to compare it with the present dynamics. Is it little republic? No. Is it self-sustained? No. Rural to rural migration and urban to rural migration or rural to urban migration. No connect with the outer world? No. There is a connect with the outer world. There is a political connect. There is a social connect. There is economic connect. Microcosm of society? No. Religion and caste are already important? No. After the Green Revolution, class has become an important dynamics. Here itself combine thinkers, M.N. Srinivas, dynamic caste wala concept, Dipankar Gupta, middle caste hierarchies, Surendra Jodhkar, that no Dalit wants to live in villages. Okay, village patriotism concept. So we had made a structure of different features of one particular school of thought while comparing with the other school of thought. So this is how you have to think about. Then question comes around about that how many thinkers we need to remember. So this is my personal experience that there is one aspirant view and there is a view related by UPSC. Aspirants always think about giving as many thinkers as possible in your answer sheets without having any conceptual clarity about the concept as well as how we are going to connect with the which thinker is relevant for this particular concept. So your emphasis is on thinkers. After thinkers, you emphasize on giving examples. Then you have to think about ki now I need to give some dimensions. So the time you come to this particular stage of generating dimensions, your time is over, your sheet is over, your thinking capability is over enough. Because हमने क्या किया? We have tried to mug up as many thinkers as possible. Whereas UPSC wants you to write as many dimensions as possible, enrich those dimensions with examples, and then look for clubbing thinkers. So if you are writing 10 thinkers and 3 dimensions in your answer sheets, whereas one is writing 10 dimensions and 3 thinkers in his answer or her answer sheet, who do you think UPSC is going to give good marks? Obviously the person who is going to write about more dimensions and clubbing it with relevant thinkers, rather than writing, filling up your sheets with thinkers name and writing only 2 or 3 dimensions. So focus on generating as many dimensions as you can generate. Now then another question, how we are going to generate dimensions. So for generating dimensions, just keep in your mind the UPSC syllabus itself of sociology. For example, question comes around child labor comment. Okay, sociological perspective on child labor. Now from chapter 5th to 10, note down the chapters. Stratification and mobility, work and economic life, politics and society, religion and society, systems of kinship, I will mark family here, then social change. Okay. Now try to connect child labor with all these sections. How child labor is related to stratification of mobility. That if a person is indulged in child labor and the family is focusing only on the child labor, there will be stratification? No. But there is one study which was published by Banerjee and Banerjee from Calcutta, that how a child labor is helping the upward mobility of lower middle class couples who hire child laborers to take care of their homes. Why they hire? Because they are cheap. Then how it is related to work and common life, how is related to political society, how it is related to religion and traditions, how it is related to family, how it is leading to social change. If we are focusing only on these 6 dimensions, we are generating more than enough dimensions to be answered on sheet, and that too will be sociological ones. Club your thinkers, whatever thinkers you remember in these 6 dimensions. Similar thing you can do with poverty. Even if you want to answer the sociological answers of your new education policy, write down the features of new education policy and try to combine club those dimensions of features related to new education policy with these 6 chapters of your paper 1. You have more than enough pointers to be right in a sociological. Okay. Then next question comes around that what are the examples and how we are going to read examples or make examples related to sociology. So for sociology, examples are not different from whatever you have been reading in newspapers for your GS wala part. Same examples can be utilized here. I will give you one example. Russia and Ukraine are fighting from last 3 years. India, Pakistan recently had a war-like of situation. Israel fighting with Iran, USA fighting a trade war with India as well as China. Okay. Then Thailand and Cambodia also fought recently. At the same point of time, we have been seeing the degradation of international organization. ट्रम्प जी का जब मुंह करे, जब मन करे, हम UNHRC से बाहर हो रहे हैं, हम UN से बाहर हो रहे हैं, whatever he says. So UN's role has diminished. If UN has a prominent role, do you think from last 3 years this war could have been continued? So the international multinational institutions, their role has already been decreasing. But at the same time, different countries are fighting with each other. Now, you have in Power and Authority of paper 1, Politics and Society chapter, you read about zero-sum concept of power given by Max Weber. You also read about variable sum concept of power given by Talcott Parsons. So if a question comes related to the contemporary relevance of zero-sum concept or a variable sum concept related to power and authority, can you utilize this particular emphasis which I am trying to make here as an example? Okay. Similarly, in Delhi recently there were various news that how slums have been redeveloped or trying to redevelop slums. Slums have been demolished. So this particular slum demolition, the waterlogging on roads is what? The part of your chapter 11 industrialization and urbanization, where this can be quoted as an examples of your skewed urban development wale perspectives. Okay, so whatever you have been reading for your GS, whatever you have been visualizing in society, try to connect it with the syllabus pointers, and in the end you will be ready with your approach related to answer writing skills as well as making short notes as well as your examples. So for short notes, keep focus on basic meanings and features, try to write those only. On the basis of that, try to compare or analyze that what kind of PYQs you could have written with this particular approach. That will help in your structure, also making good structure also. For examples, try to analyze with the syllabus pointers. Similarly, for your dimensions, try to analyze with the syllabus dimension. Okay. Now, another part, that always try to find out with the PYQs itself that what kind of integration can be made related to analyzing the future prospects or future questions given by UPSC. For example, PC PNDT Act PCPNDT Act is always or generally asked by a UPSC related to its shortcomings, success or failures, etc. Okay. This PCPNDT Act is what? This is a law which was made to counter a problem of female feticide. This year UPSC did what? They have asked a question that is constitutional laws or constitutional provisions or law is enough to solve the problem of child labor. Again, the connection between law and a continued problem. So if we could have given emphasis on this broad view, we could have easily compared that what kind of new questions can be asked. Basically, they are trying to highlight that what are the shortcomings in law in preventing a particular problem. But if this particular question can be asked next time related to trafficking or prostitution. Okay. So when you are analyzing, try to analyze in a holistic perspective. Okay. So this was all related to basic approach of analyzing your syllabus, and hence what or how you are going to proceed further related to covering your sociology in a very particular time frame. Okay. Now one little announcement that we are coming with a new batch of sociology enrichment program as well as test series. All these sections, all whatever I have been talking, I am already covering every aspect in my sociology enrichment classes. Okay, as well as whatever the mentorship sessions we are giving in our test series, we are already covering. I am already covering all those aspects which I have already told you there. So new batches are already coming. Go on the website, look for the sociology optional, and you will be getting all the views related to courses. Okay, whatever the mentorship you need, come on our Telegram channel. I will float a one particular form where you can with that you can connect with me directly. If that it's a challenge, there is one number 93191787771. On this number also you can drop your queries. We are ready to help you out. We are ready to strategize your preparation so that you will be completing sociology in a very limited time frame and in a very enriched time frame. Okay, this was all. Take care. All the best.